You are plugged into the analysis that cuts through the noise and delivers the most critical insights from the global research stack. Today, we are taking a long, hard look at the future of, well, human labor under the accelerating influence of AI. And we have sources that paint two just radically different futures for you.
That's right. I mean, on one side, we're hearing these utopian visions of a post-scarcity world, a world where AI essentially solves poverty and, human work becomes completely optional.
The big dream.
A big dream. And on the other side, we have immediate, very concrete data from the job market showing a massive, painful disruption. The reality of displacement that's already hitting, really, the newest generation of workers.
And our mission today is to navigate that gap. We're going to take the visionary claims like those from Elon Musk at the U.S. Saudi Investment Forum and hold them up against the data-driven realities, the realities reported by sources like Goldman Sachs and the World Bank.
It's all about reconciling that dream of abundance with the immediate and, let's be honest, quite messy reality of disruption.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start with the most dramatic prediction in the stack. Elon Musk, he recently stepped onto the global stage and framed poverty not as this inherently complex social or political issue,
No.
but as an engineering problem.
And that reframing is so key because when you look at poverty through an engineering lens, you start focusing on inputs and outputs.
Right.
The scarcity of labor, the costs of goods, all the inefficiencies in production. And he argues AI is the ultimate tool for optimizing all of it.
And he didn't hedge his bets either. He specifically cited humanoid robots like Tesla's Optimus, claiming that combined with AI, they could, and this is a quote, solve the labor shortage, drive costs to near zero, and create a future where poverty is statistically irrelevant.
The timeline he gave for this it's aggressive. He's talking about a complete societal and economic restructuring within the next 10 to 20 years.
If that actually happens, you have to completely redefine what it means to be human, what our purpose is.
It changes the entire concept of a job. Work just shifts from a mandatory condition of survival to something optional.
I found his analogy for it fascinating. He compared future work to hobbies we have now.
Right, like playing a video game or...
Exactly, or practicing a sport, maybe cultivating a garden in your backyard. You do it for personal satisfaction, not because you needed to pay the rent.
And, well, that vision requires a leap way beyond our current socioeconomic models. This isn't just about universal basic income.
Though he does talk about that.
He does. He says it's a necessary bridge. But his broader point is that currency itself, money, could become irrelevant in a future where production is so automated.
That's a massive shift. So if money has no value, what are the constraints then?
Well, he suggested the only constraints would be fundamental physical ones. So electricity generation, raw materials, mass.
Nothing to do with human labor or capital.
Nothing. And to give a frame of reference for this, he pointed to the Culture series by the science fiction author Iain M. Banks.
A true post-scarcity future. Exactly. A future where money and economic necessity just aren't the drivers of human action anymore.
It sounds like a perfect utopia, but even Musk admits the transition would be difficult.
He used the words trauma and disruption.
He did. He argued that societies will need both universal basic income and universal high income to manage that intense period of change.
And that trauma, the sources suggest, is already here.
It's already upon us.
Exactly. Musk is looking 10, 20 years out at the destination, but if we just snap back to the immediate reality, the data tells a story of pain right now. The Financial Times even coined a term for it. The jobpocalypse.
And the data really supports that dramatic name, especially at the entry level. We're seeing a significant freeze.
A freeze is a good way to put it.
Entry-level job offers in the U.S. and the U.K. have dropped by a staggering 33% year over year.
Wow.
That's not a mild recession. That's a structural reevaluation of human labor in white-collar jobs. And look at who it's hurting the most. University graduates, the group that, usually has the highest expectations for their careers. Unemployment among them in the U.S. hit 5.8% in 2025. That is a 30% jump just since 2022. That kind of rapid decline creates huge societal stress.
And it's not hard to see why it's happening. The global surveys confirm it. 41% of business leaders, 41% reported that AI was already allowing them to cut staff.
But okay, let's step back from those immediate numbers for a second. The analysis from Goldman Sachs offers a much-needed long-term counterpoint.
What's their big takeaway?
They argue that generative AI, when it's fully adopted, could raise overall labor productivity in developed markets by about 15%.
15%? That's huge.
That's huge. But regarding the job losses, their forecast is that the overall impact on unemployment will be modest and temporary.
So temporary pain for long-term gain.
That's the idea. They predict the jobless rate will rise by only about half a percentage point during the transition, and that usually fades after about 2 years.
That feels almost reassuring until you look at the fine print, the margins they cite.
And that's where the nuance is so crucial. Their baseline estimate is 6 to 7% of the U.S. workforce being displaced.
Okay.
But they acknowledge that under different assumptions, that range could be as low as 3%. Or as high as 14%.
14%. See, that's not temporary. That's millions of people needing a complete career overhaul. How can we be confident the pain is temporary if the risk range is that wide?
It raises a vital question about how we prepare for this. And if we look at the specific jobs they identified as highest risk, you can see exactly why that 14% figure is plausible.
All right, so who should be preparing to pivot right now?
Well, the list is dominated by traditional white-collar roles, the kind that involve synthesizing information, writing, analysis.
So we're talking about?
We're talking about computer programmers, accountants and auditors, legal and administrative assistants, customer service reps, telemarketers, credit analysts.
The digital back office, essentially, and the data confirms it's disproportionately hitting the newest people in these fields.
Precisely. It's not the 55-year-old Martiner, it's the 24-year-old college grad. The data shows younger tech workers, 20 to 30 years old, are taking the brunt of this.
It's really jarring to realize that a steady, high-status major I would have told a young relative to pursue 5 years ago, accounting, entry-level software development, is now on the high-risk list.
That's the nature of the shift. But now, for the counterintuitive part, what jobs are at the least risk?
I'd guess jobs requiring a high physical presence or, deep human connection.
And you'd be right. Air traffic controllers, chief executives, members of the clergy, they're all on the low-risk list. But the most fascinating case study for this whole argument of augmentation versus displacement comes from healthcare, specifically radiologists.
Radiologists. But for years, they were the poster child for AI replacement. Deep learning is perfect for image recognition.
I know, right? But what happened is that AI hasn't replaced the doctor. It's augmented their productivity massively.
How so?
AI takes over the mundane task, the initial image analysis, the filtering, the sorting. This means radiologists are actually being hired at a faster rate because their throughput has increased.
So they can handle a higher volume of cases.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They can focus more of their time on complex diagnosis, communicating with patients, higher order thinking.
Yeah.
It lets them provide more value, not just analyze more images.
That distinction is crucial for high-income countries. But the situation looks drastically different when we shift our focus outside the U.S. and Europe.
It's a completely different story. When we look at AI exposure across the globe, it really seems to be a massive inequality amplifier.
And the World Bank data backs this up.
It does. They measured AI occupational exposure on an index from 0 to 100, and the gap between rich and poor nations is profound. High-income countries average 62 on that exposure index.
And low-income countries.
It's just 37.
That gap suggests the productivity boost we just talked about, like with the radiologists, it just won't materialize in many developing nations.
How can it? Their economic structures, their digital foundations, they're completely different. In almost all countries, it's the female, urban, and highly educated workers who face the highest exposure because they're the ones with access to the tech. High-skilled jobs like managers, professionals, clerks.
They're the most exposed.
The most exposed. To give you a number, clerks, globally, have 97% high exposure to AI.
But the deeper problem for the poorest countries isn't just the jobs profile. It's the shocking lack of basic infrastructure.
That is the fundamental constraint that overrides everything else. I mean, we are talking about the absolute basics. Internet access in low-income countries is only 27%.
27%.
But the most shocking figure is electricity. 41% of occupations in low-income countries lack reliable electricity access.
41% of jobs can't even plug in a computer, let alone run a large language model.
And if you break that down by geography, that figure jumps to 51% in rural low-income areas. It makes the whole conversation about advanced AI totally irrelevant.
You can't automate a job if there's no power outlet in the building.
Right. And this lack of infrastructure hits these countries twice. It threatens the two traditional pathways they use for growth: manufacturing and services.
The classic development model.
The classic model. Now, manufacturing is becoming super capital intensive, so it creates fewer jobs. Estimates suggest 60% of jobs in Bangladesh's garment sector could be lost to automation by 2030.
That's an enormous societal shift for a single nation.
And then there's services. The competitive advantage of low-cost call centers in the Philippines or India is being, rapidly eroded by AI.
Why hire 100 people when one AI can handle the tier 1 queries?
Exactly. So if both manufacturing and services are automated away before these countries can industrialize, they risk being locked out of the AI productivity boom entirely.
Which brings us back full circle to where we started. The high-stakes investment and geopolitical decisions being made right now to secure compute power. These abstract ideas are grounded in very concrete deals, like the U.S. Saudi Strategic AI Partnership.
That partnership is capitalizing heavily on Saudi Arabia's unique advantages: land, energy, geography, to become a global hub for AI. And the money involved reflects the urgency of this race.
A $600 billion commitment to invest in the U.S., including $80 billion from companies like Google, AMD, Uber for cutting-edge tech.
And securing that place at the top means owning the infrastructure. Look at the partnership between Musk's xAI and the kingdom.
The Grok supercomputer project.
A gigantic 500-megawatt supercomputer project powered by NVIDIA GPUs. That's an almost unfathomable amount of raw processing power.
Jensen Huang from NVIDIA highlighted this shift. He noted that accelerated computing using GPUs went from being 10% of the world's top 500 supercomputers to 90%.
In just 6 years.
6 years, driven purely by generative AI. That's unprecedented.
And the sheer energy requirements of that transformation are what led Musk to his most extreme prediction about where compute will ultimately live.
Right, he said it's going to be in space.
Within 4 to 5 years, he thinks the lowest cost way to do AI compute will be with solar-powered AI satellites in deep space.
In space? How does that even make economic sense?
It comes down to physics
Oh,
and electricity. He argues that trying to generate and cool a terawatt per year of compute will be impossible on Earth.
because of the heat.
The thermal management issues, exactly. But in deep space, you have continuous solar power, and, crucially, you have radiative cooling. You just radiate the heat away into the cold background of space. It turns a terrestrial constraint into an extraterrestrial advantage.
That is profound. So while Musk is planning terawatts of solar-powered AI in space, billions of people still need a basic wall socket to even access the low-end automation that's threatening their jobs.
It's an incredible dichotomy. We've covered everything from Musk's currency is a relevant future to the immediate job-apocalypse for young workers, all the way to a global divide that comes down to electricity access.
So what does this all mean? The sources paint this consistent picture of technology that undeniably boosts productivity. It rapidly accelerates innovation.
Absolutely. The productivity boom is real. But the job losses are also real. They're immediate, and they're hitting vulnerable, educated demographics first.
The ultimate question remains, can we navigate this transition without leaving huge swaths of the global workforce behind?
Historically, we know that technology-driven job creation accounts for over 85% of employment growth since 1940. So new jobs do emerge.
But the nature of the value created by those jobs fundamentally shifts.
Look at the radiologist example again. AI automated the mundane task, which allowed the doctor to shift their time toward more complex work. A new, higher-value pool of labor.
The key is adaptation.
The key is adaptation, but adaptation requires foresight.
And what does that foresight look like for you, for the listener?
Well, if AI automates the analytical or repetitive tasks in your current job, be it coding or accounting or managing customer service tickets, the real question is, how will you identify the new complex tasks that will emerge from that automation?
It's not about fearing replacement.
No, it's about anticipating the required shift to new value pools.
Yeah.
It requires a fundamental change in how we all think about professional value. And that shift in perspective, that's the real mandate for the next decade.
A mandate for identifying the next tier of human value creation. That's a powerful challenge for all of us. Thank you for guiding us through this deep dive.
It was my pleasure.